Now, in today's economy, we continue to hear about the debt crisis in Europe. There's lots of foreclosures and a big increase in consumer debt. So whose fault is it? Is it the fault of the bank for lending too much money, or is it all our fault for just asking for too much and borrowing it?
Well, I think it's really easy to blame the banks when you look at the facts. So when I first started university, and I don't want to sound like some grumpy old man here, but it was almost 30 years ago that I started university. And I remember walking into my first day on campus, and I wasn't greeted by a professor or the university president or the student council president or anything like that. The first person I saw was the credit card representative with the sheet of paper that they gave to every student. It had a list of all the credit cards you could apply for down the side, and all you had to do was put a tick mark, put your name and put a tick mark, and you were instantly approved for a credit card with a $500 limit. So 2 weeks into your university career, you could have 10 credit cards with a $500 limit, $5,000 access to credit. I mean, that's crazy. A day before you started university, they wouldn't lend you anything, but now that you're a university student, you can get way into debt. So a lot of students back then would graduate not just with their student loans, but also with credit card debt. Now, you wind it forward and you take a look at the credit card companies now. And I remember being on the show with you, Dave, back in 2007, 2008. We used to talk about all the credit card offers that you got in the mail, pre-approved for this and that. And 3 or 4 times a week, I'd be pre-approved. And I'm sure all our listeners can remember getting pre-approved for a gold card and a platinum card and a titanium card, $10,000 limit. So we'd all fill them out. And again, tons of credit that we probably didn't need. But hey, if someone's going to throw it at you, why not take it? The real estate situation, another prime example of overlending. It used to be that you could, buy a house with no money down. Back before the credit crisis in 2008, you could get a mortgage for 95% of the value of the house. Of course, it had to be CMHC insured, which meant you were paying 2% more than, 2 points higher than normal. But hey, I get the loan. And then for the down payment, no problem. The bank would lend you that too. They'd lend you $20,000 to put into your RSP, and then you could use the money in your RSP under the new home buyers program to make the down payment. And in fact, they might even give you cash back and you could use that to buy a fridge and a stove. I mean, it was nuts. Finance companies are probably even worse, and we already hit on them a bit earlier. Getting a loan where the interest rate is 33% is insane. So, yeah, I blame the banks, the credit card companies, the finance companies for all this lending. But there's 2 sides to the story. And the second side of the story is it takes 2 to tango. There has to be a lender, but there also has to be a borrower. When that pre-approved credit card application came in the mail, I had to actually fill it out and sign it and send it back. I had to go to the bank to apply for that mortgage or that loan or that finance company loan or that credit card. So I think we've got to look at both sides of it and say, you know what? Yes, the banks are to blame. They lent way too much money, but we also borrowed when we really didn't need it, and now we're the ones who are suffering the consequences of it. The banks are going to lend because they make money lending. The largest bank in Canada makes a profit of $1.5 billion every 3 months. It's fantastically profitable for them to lend. A savings account now pays less than 1%. They take that money and loan it out to you on a credit card at 19%. That's a massive profit margin. I mean, that's like me making a pen for $1 and being able to sell it for $19. That's a fantastic rate of return. It's no wonder they're gonna throw it out there. But we have the power to say no. We have the power to say, I'm the boss here. I can decide if I'm going to use my credit card as a way to borrow or not. Mm-hmm. And when the bank automatically increases my credit card limit from $5,000 to $10,000, I have the power to phone the bank and say, no, I don't want that much credit, back it down. And when they offer to lend me more against my house, I have the power to say, no, you know what? I'm trying to get out of debt, not get into more debt. So I think the solution to our problems, and I surveyed my staff this week and asked them, what do you think? What do you think the solution is? And some of them said, well, maybe the government should put a cap on interest rates for credit cards or loans or whatever. Okay, I guess that's one solution, but the government, I mean, aren't these the geniuses who've racked up the biggest deficits in the history of this country? Are these the guys we want managing my money? I don't think so. More education would be great, but it's kind of hard teaching a 14-year-old kid in high school the value of credit when they've never been able to borrow anyways. I think the ultimate solution is we have to be responsible for ourselves. We have to say to ourselves, I'm the boss. I'm the one who's going to decide what I borrow and when I borrow. And if we do that, I think all of a sudden the banks can't get away with lending us all this money because we're not taking it. If we start thinking of it as a debt card instead of a credit card, that changes your whole perception. Credit sounds like something good. Oh, the bank gave me credit. That's a great thing. It's a debt card. Every time I use it, I'm digging myself into the hole. If we said to ourselves, I'm the boss, I think that ultimately is the solution to our debt problems. Yeah, and if you're sitting there now listening to us saying, okay, I get it, you're right, I should, borrow less and not use my credit cards and cut them up and everything, but what do I do if I already have a bunch of debt? I did lose my job a year ago and I've had to live on credit. I can't sell my house and pay off the mortgage because it's worth less than what I paid for it. What do I do? Well, again, you have to say to yourself, I'm the boss. You have to be proactive and take a look at those 5 options that we talked about earlier. Can you cut your expenses and pay your debts off yourself? Or maybe you do have to file a consumer proposal to get your debts under control. Waiting for it to get better generally isn't the solution because the interest keeps piling up. You've got to decide, I'm in control, I'm the boss, I'm going to deal with it today. And that's the first step to getting this under control. Once the debts are under control, it's a lot easier to manage it in the future.